breaking news first at noon. A massive emergency response to a 3-alarm building fire in Mapunapuna. Nearby buildings have been evacuated, and multiple sources tell us this all started after federal agents executed a search warrant at the property. Dylan Ancheta joins us live from the scene with what we know. Dylan.
Aloha, thank you so much, Ashley. We are in the Mapunapuna area, and just behind me you can see many of the firefighters remain on scene responding to what was a 3-alarm blaze at one point. HFD says that the first phone call came in for this fire around 9:45, and at one point they dispatched 14 units with more than 50 personnel. They were sent to a large 2-story commercial structure, and when they got on scene they found the building, at least portions of the building, fully engulfed in flames, and they quickly initiated their attack. They were in the defensive mode for much of this battle. So far, the good news is there were no immediate injuries reported with this, but once again, they are still battling this fire. They are concerned about the structural integrity of this because this fire was so big. It has been burning for several hours at this point, and smoke has filled Nimitz Highway and been blowing toward the ocean area. And we also know that multiple sources say there was a search warrant executed earlier today on the property by federal agents, and that there is possibly hazardous materials inside, which has prompted them to keep adjacent buildings, push them back outside of the perimeter. And that is prompting firefighters to take a defensive and very cautious approach to battling this fire. And what that search warrant was about, however, we do not have those details confirmed. But for the latest on this, I would like to bring in HFD Captain Jamie Song with the latest on this fire. Thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us in terms of the status of this?
Right, so we started off with defensive operations because basically the Maui side of that large warehouse was fully involved in fire, and especially smoke. Once we got initial knockdown on the fire, we were able to reassess the structural integrity of the building. The Maui side has a parapet wall, a CMU wall above the roof line that is cracking, and so we are staying away from that area. But on the Diamond Head side, we have made entry on that side, and so we are currently inside finding the seat of the fire and also trying to extinguish that. So at this time we do not have fire control or fire extinguishment, but we are making progress.
What can you tell us about the potential hazards that were inside?
Right now I don't have details on any hazards inside, but we were able to make entry. So as far as structural integrity, we're just avoiding the side. That was the biggest hazard for us, aside from the fire, of course. So we're just avoiding that side where there is concern.
And how concerned are you folks that the roof possibly could collapse? I mean, this fire has been burning for several hours now. What's the concerns there like?
The roof right now is intact, and we have a rescue crew on scene, as well as 2 battalion chiefs that have assessed the situation to ensure, number one, the safety of our personnel.
And last question, talk about some of the challenges that the crews have been facing with this specific fire.
Really, the biggest challenge was just the fire itself. We were able to access it because it was fully involved in fire. And there was no reports of occupants inside. There wasn't a life safety issue. So the concern was for the safety of our personnel, and always is the biggest concern for us. So it was a defensive operation as far as attacking it from the outside. And then, of course, now we've progressed to being able to make entry.
Captain Jamie Song, thank you so much for the update. We appreciate it. So once again, fire crews remain on the scene here battling this fire. And we also want to mention that the adjacent buildings were evacuated as a result of this, and crews do remain on the scene, and we'll bring you any updates on this fire on air and online. Live in Mapunapuna, Dylan Ancheta, Hawaii News Now.
A moment of reflection, unity, and healing to mark the 2nd anniversary of the Maui wildfire disaster. This is a live look at a special memorial happening right now at the county building in Wailuku, honoring those who were affected by the tragedy on August 8, 2023. More than 100 people were killed, and our communities have been forever changed. Casey Lund has been covering the aftermath and road to recovery from the very beginning. He joins us live from West Maui with more on this somber anniversary. Case.
Yeah, and Ash, it was somber. You know, the moments when folks gathered here to get out in the water, which we're going to take you to in a moment, were somber. But there's also a lot of joy here. I want to walk you around and just show you what's happening. One of the common themes that a lot of the folks I've been talking to is keeping Keiki engaged and involved and busy, creative. They're doing screen printing on site here, making shirts to celebrate folks. Lahaina Strong is here. But I want you to come with me, and I'll show you where that paddle out took place. Just a few hours ago, people started coming back in, not too long ago, but things started off with a blessing. I want to take you to that moment as literally hundreds, if not thousands, paddled out to the ocean here at Hanakao'o Beach Park. Yeah, really special moment there. You see that brother going out with his surfboard, getting ready to go out there and really think about what this day is all about. Lahaina Strong represented here, and this gentleman, of course, doesn't like to call himself the leader of Lahaina Strong, but he's certainly become one of the more outspoken members of that group, founding member Pa'ele Kiakona. I caught up with him this morning to talk a little bit about what today meant for not only their group, but this community. Take a quick listen.
Now that we're here today at Hanakao'o, it's the 2-year anniversary, of course, and it is a heavy day for many. Sometimes a reminder is often difficult for some people, a reminder of the day, and, to remember what happened, but it is also important for us to remember because sometimes, as we've seen shortly after the fire, a lot of the things that were going on around the planet, it was overshadowing what was happening here, and it was taking attention away. And not that we're here seeking attention, but when an issue lacks attention, it doesn't get resolved or dealt with. And that's what I look at. Days like today is an anniversary. Yes, it's a day for us to come together, to be together, and not have to fight.
Yeah, and I think that is what the theme was, talking with county leaders here. Is today is not really about focusing on all the problems, that there are still many, and we're going to be covering those. We have team coverage, as you're going to mention. We have team coverage throughout the day, focusing on those issues, housing, the economic sluggish recovery. There's a lot to cover, but today, at least here, there was a lot of joy, and of course, mourning and healing as we remember those 102 souls lost. That's what going out there was all about. There was a flower drop. You may have seen that in the video. Blue Hawaiian helicopters dropping those petals. A really beautiful ceremony. Ash, back to you.
Thank you, Case. Well, meanwhile, renters who were displaced by the Lahaina wildfires are expressing frustration and want more assistance as they struggle with housing. FEMA has been providing housing assistance, but rents have been rising, and the federal help is ending in February. Maui County is starting its Ho'okumuho housing program, but members of the Lahaina Filipino Fire Survivors Association say renters are being left out.
And while the new Ho'okumuho housing programs sound promising, they're mostly geared toward homeowners, even though 77% of fire-impacted families are renters.
The association says it wants an extension of FEMA assistance, something the county is also supporting. Meanwhile, the county will host a webinar on the housing program on Saturday. We have links on our website. And the Lahaina Community Land Trust is working to prevent foreign investors from buying and reselling properties in West Maui. Through county funds, donations, and private partnerships, the trust has helped 10 families rebuild their homes and purchase 13 parcels of land. New homes will be built on those lots that will only be available to long-term residents.
Before we found out about the Lahaina Community Land Trust and Hawaii Community Lending, we were, all 13 of us are planning to cram up in a 3-bedroom house.
I would have to work probably till I'm 80, and they cut that, because of the funding and the program, I might be able to retire a lot sooner.
The Land Trust also launched its new Kalua Ehu program yesterday to partner with Maui businesses. You can learn more about that on our website, hawaiinewsnow.com. And an upcountry Maui nonprofit is creating fire breaks to prevent future fires from spreading. The Kula Community Watershed Alliance created this path of mulch stretching about 1.5 miles in and around the burn zone from the wildfires 2 years ago. The fire break will help slow any flames, preserving access for fire trucks to get into areas that were once covered by dense forests.
Other thing it does, it stabilizes the soils. As you can see over here, an area that hasn't been chipped that was once wattle is very, very dusty. Wattle dehydrates the soil around it.
The nonprofit chips dead or damaged vegetation, especially the invasive and highly flammable black wattle trees. And Maui County aims to build a dramatic royal complex along the Lahaina shoreline, honoring the town's history as the first capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom. The plan calls for restoring the Mokuhinia freshwater pond and other historic sites stretching from Saw Street to the famous banyan tree by the harbor.
I envision as you walk through this entire amazing cultural landscape, then you really get a sense of the story of who we are as a people.
Today, the tourist is looking for these kinds of things and saying, what happened?
Because as much as the fires took, it also revealed. And it revealed a place that can be beautiful, that can be relevant and culturally significant already to us, but that we can share with the world.
The mayor estimates it will take at least 10 years to complete the project. The county has hired a company to ask for community input and develop a master plan. And Hawaii News Now has complete coverage of the second anniversary of the Maui wildfires. We'll have live coverage of all the events throughout the day on our website, hawaiinewsnow.com. And go to the HNN streaming app for extended coverage, including all the stories from this week, along with our half-hour special marking the one-year anniversary of the wildfires. You can get the HNN streaming app on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. On the Big Island, Hawaii Island fire crews have been kept busy by a large brush fire on the Hamakua coast. It started yesterday afternoon just below Highway 19 in Pa'awilo. At last check, the blaze has burned about 150 acres. Crews used a bulldozer to create fire breaks and a helicopter for water drops. Thankfully, the county says no structures are threatened and no evacuations have been ordered.
All right, well, happy Aloha Friday, everybody. Of course, as we're tracking the wildfire out there, we are going to continue watching the winds. It's a little bit breezy out there. The trade winds have been building in yesterday and also building in today. They'll get a little bit weaker as we're going into the weekend. We're actually seeing sustained winds in town around 21 miles per hour. And as we go throughout the rest of this afternoon, you're going to continue to see the winds get a little bit breezier, between 15 to 25 mile per hour sustained winds across the entirety of the state. It's really not until we get into the late night that's when we start to see those weaker winds out there. Still seeing overall northeasterly flow around 5 to 10 miles per hour tomorrow morning. Of course, the Keach-Byram Drought Index, we show this a lot, especially during the dry season. Today, we've been up to 638. That's measured every day at the airport. It's just saying that we're at that critical fire danger level, especially in leeward areas. Of course, I'll give you a closer look at what we can expect for our weekend forecast coming up, but stick around. We'll be right back after this short break.
Now back to that breaking news we brought to you at the top of the show of a massive building fire in Mapunapuna. Let's send it back out live to our Dylan Ancheta, who has an update from the scene. Dylan.
Aloha, thank you so much. We have moved locations and we now have a new vantage point of this fire. We are alongside the Nimitz Highway, and as you can see, the smoke is still billowing. The smoke is much more thin than what it was when this fire first started. Again, to recap some of the details, the first call for this fire came in around 9:45 this morning to a two-story commercial building here on Kilihau Street. This fire has been smoking out Ke'ehi Lagoon Beach Park and sending all of the smoke down to Makai area. Firefighters remain on scene here. We know at one point there were upwards of 14 units staffed with more than 50 personnel. But the good news here is that no injuries immediately have been reported with this fire. And we are still working to gather more details on exactly what types of hazards were inside the building. HFT did not have many details to share on that, but we are trying to get some confirmation as to exactly what they were working with. And to recap some of what Captain Jamie Song said, they are concerned about the structural integrity of this building because, again, this fire has now been burning for several hours. They did notice some cracks in the roof portion of the building, but she did say that the fire crews were able to start making their way inside from that defensive attack to a more offensive approach to beat out these flames. So we will continue to monitor this fire and bring you any updates both on air and online. Be sure to stick with Hawaii News Now and download the mobile news app for the very latest. Live in Mapunapuna, Dylan and Cheta, we'll send things back to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Dylan, for the update. Coming up after the break, we'll walk you through our first alert full forecast. We've got breezy trade winds out there today and Tropical Storm Henriette out in the East Pacific. The details on all of this coming up.
Alert weather with Drew Davis.
All right, well, happy Aloha Friday, everybody. You made it to the weekend. We've got a lot to talk about in our first alert forecast this afternoon. The trades, they've been returning today. They were also getting a little bit breezy yesterday. We also have Tropical Storm Henriette that's out in the eastern Pacific. That is actually going to affect our wind pattern as we're going into the beginning of next week. Some coastal flooding is still possible out there alongside some high surf. We'll get to the alerts right here. We've got a coastal flood statement up through 6 a.m. on Monday, higher than average average high tides could lead to some minor coastal flooding across the entire state through high tides during each afternoon. Again, this is going to last through 6 a.m. on Monday, and a high surf advisory is up for all south-facing shores until 6 a.m. on Monday as well. You can see in our surf and shoreline forecast some of the surf, the south swell that's been moving in as we're going into this afternoon, around 7 to 10 feet on south-facing shores, west-facing shores around 5 to 7, east-facing shores 4 to 6, relatively small up on north-facing shores. You can see all of that energy in our swell forecast moving through the island chain. This is Sunday. We're starting to see it subside ever so slightly, and then by the time we get to the middle of next week, we're really not seeing much surf out there. And in our first alert futurecast, you can see a few showers possible over the next couple of days, but I want you to pay attention up behind me. That is Tropical Storm Henriette off to the northeast of the island chain. That is going to move well to the north of us, but it's going to impact us in a couple of ways. We're going to see a better chance for showers out there because of the lighter winds that Henriette is going to create across the state. It's going to mess up the overall trade wind flow. It looks very weak right there. This is a Tropical Storm Henriette. It's out in the eastern Pacific right now. It's got winds about 35 miles per hour, and right now it's actually not even a tropical storm. It's post-tropical. It's expected to strengthen again to a tropical storm as it moves to the north of us. Originally, the National Hurricane Center was expecting it to get to hurricane strength to the north of us, but they've lowered that prediction, so still keeping at tropical storm strength. And our winds outside right now, still breezy out there, but these are going to get weaker, especially as we're going into Sunday and Monday, and Henriette is to the north of us. Of course, with these breezy trades out there, it's a little bit of concern, especially with how dry it is across the state. The Capybara Drought Index, we're at 638. Our normal for this time of year average is 605. We're ahead of schedule when it comes to how dry we are across the entirety of the state. So the dry season is only getting worse out there as we're going forward. Our 7-day forecast, mahalo to Neil for sending in that background photo. Sunny out there over the next couple of days. Lighter winds as we're going into Sunday and Monday because of Henriette to our north. A few showers because of that as we still see some pop-up afternoon sea breeze showers.
Thank you, Drew. Well, Kauai's County Council Chair Mel Raposo is running for mayor next year. He made it official last night, saying he got a unanimous recommendation from his exploratory council. Raposo is a retired Hawaii Air National Guardsman and former Kauai police officer. His fellow council member and former Kauai Mayor Bernard Carvalho announced in May that he is also running. Current Mayor Derek Kawakami is leaving office because he reached his term limit. He has hinted at a run for governor or lieutenant governor. And the Chuck E. Cheese in Pearl City is closing its doors this weekend after more than 30 years in business. The location's last day of business is Sunday. Nearly 200 items from the restaurant and arcade are up for auction at Caring Transitions of Honolulu's website.
A lot of the games that you've known from Chuck E. Cheese's, they're selling a lot of the games there. The kitchen equipment, including the pizza oven and some of the ice machine and that kind of stuff.
You can get your bids in fast. The auction closes on Monday. We're going to post a link to the online auction on our website, hawaiinewsnow.com. Well, still to come, we'll take you to a cafe in Florida where you can get a cup of coffee with a side of capybara. This story coming up in today's Good News Now.
Laid back and the world's largest rodent, we're talking about the capybara.
Yeah, these furry friends are helping other at-risk animals. Manuel Bojorquez takes us to the Capybara Cafe in Florida, where humans can get their fix too.
There aren't many places where you can pair your cup of joe with a capybara. But here at the Capybara Cafe in St. Augustine, Florida,
we're going to be feeding the capybaras.
They are the main attraction.
You take a piece of kale just like this.
Justin Burgess is head supervisor of the animal care team.
And you just put it right there in front of their face. They're very, very gentle about it.
What is a capybara?
Capybara is the world's largest rodent. They are native to South America. Basically, you can think about a guinea pig that got to be 100, 150 pounds.
They have become hugely popular on social media, especially with young people who think they're simply cute.
I just find them so cute. I'm honestly speechless.
But to learn more about how this place came to be a Capybara Cafe, you have to visit the nearby Noah's Ark Animal Sanctuary, where anything from goats to tortoises who need help are rehabilitated. This sanctuary, however, runs on donations, which all but dried up during the COVID pandemic.
Eventually, it became an idea that we need to come up with something creative to get funding, or we're going to have to shut our doors and leave some of these animals out on the street. They happened to hear about capybara cafes out in Tokyo, Japan. They thought, well, we could probably do something similar to that.
Our capybaras can also actually bark, similar to how a dog or a prairie dog would.
Enter their 3 big cappies, aptly named Mocha, Latte, and Macchiato. For an entry fee, you can leave the cafe lobby and head into one of these rooms, where people can feed, pet, or just hang out with these laid-back rodents. David and Sam came from Atlanta.
So did you come here on vacation?
We did, specifically for this.
So you're hoping that people's fascination with these animals educates them about the need to protect?
Absolutely. That's the big thing for us, is protecting the animals, conserving wildlife, keeping species out of harm's way.
And keeping at least one species, these humans, very happy.
Manuel Bojorquez, CBS News, St. Augustine, Florida.
I had no idea that they got up to 100 or 150 pounds.
Crazy.
They don't look that big in the video.
Yeah, I had a guinea pig growing up.
Yeah.
Love those. Right. We're going to leave you with one last live look at Kilauea. We're going to have more coverage coming up later on later editions of Hawaii News Now, including the 2nd anniversary of the Maui wildfires. Thanks for watching.